Hey guys, welcome into Something Like Therapy. On today's episode, Jessica and I are going to be discussing blended families and all the ups and downs and craziness of that journey. And definitely we're going to be sharing some of our own experiences since Jessica and I have our own blended family. So stick around for that. We're going to be going through some of the more common, struggles you can say. But we definitely want to give insight and give advice on some of those things that we've gone through. And we hope that it helps you if you, in fact, are in a blended family. So stick around and enjoy the show. Hey guys, welcome in to Something Like Therapy. How's everyone doing? This is a little new for us. We're recording at a different time of the week and a different time of the day too. So you'll get a different side of us. This is Derick and Jess After Dark. Maybe we'll start a new podcast.
Our date night.
Yeah, this is date night.
This is our date
episode.
Night.
So if you feel the romance in our voices, you know why. But so welcome in. We hope that you are having a great day. Maybe if you are listening to this in the morning, we hope you have a great day coming up. And if you're listening to it in the evening, I hope it's been amazing. So
yes.
I think to start things off, guess what, guys? Guess what? We actually did a Would You Rather and posted it and got responses. So I'm going to hand it over to Jess so she can start the conversation there.
Thank you guys we got a pretty good number of responses back. So that
1 million
exciting.
Responses. 1 million.
It was a really interesting question because we actually got almost 50-50. It was only by a few votes where, it ended up going the other way. So the question was, would you rather have a rude but quick server or a nice and friendly but slow server?
And we're talking server as in waiter, waitress, not someone that's serving you with court papers.
Right.
Not a process server.
We're talking in the food industry here. Okay.
Well, what was yours? What was mine? And what one we should do, I guess.
Mine was rude and quick.
Mine was also rude and quick.
Yeah. Because we were just having this conversation right before we started recording. And we're talking about how sometimes it could be... of course, you want someone friendly and attentive. And you want to make sure that they're getting your order right. And no one's ever going to say that a nice server is something they don't wish to have. But more than anything, I think I'd rather have somebody that's going to be quick and accurate. And honestly, someone that isn't going to just constantly interrupt our, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, whatever it is that we're having. Because that's what we're talking about. People that are overly friendly or overly just hey, do you guys need this? Do you need that? It begins to get a little annoying when someone's a little too friendly. Some people like that. I personally don't.
Well, I don't mind if they're hey, do you need this? Do you need that? That's what you should be talking about. When they start oh, that shirt, I know that band, and it's okay. A little bit of trying to make a connection. Hey, I get it. You're working. Feel
special.
Yeah, you're working for the tip, and that's great. And I'll if I feel it was a good time here and I got my stuff good and my food good and stuff, that's usually when you tip, when they go above and beyond. But then that can easily turn into okay, I'm done talking to you, can you just go get our drinks now?
But I
don't want to be rude.
The part that I'm talking about, the overly friendly or overly attentive, is when they come every 2 minutes. Would you like me to top that off? especially when you're having coffee or a drink.
Yeah.
And there's been times where, they'll come around, I don't know, maybe within 5 minutes, they've already come around twice. And it's dude, I'm not going to, unless I'm really needing this coffee, I'm not really going to need you to come check on me every minute or so. Like, it just becomes a little too, I don't know, a little too excessive. I love my privacy, and I love to, when I go to have lunch or dinner or, whatever, breakfast with someone, I'm there to spend time with them. I'm not there to spend time with my server. I know it sounds rude, but, But apparently, more than half of the people that voted went the other way. They want a friendly person. I had someone that said, I don't pay someone to be rude to me. I get it. It's understandable.
I think maybe they just, I don't know, maybe that's how they really feel, but maybe didn't understand the question, because it's I get it. You want someone that is friendly. You don't, no one wants to have someone act rude to them. But it's also, we should have emphasized friendly, but you're going to get your order mixed up. You're going to get your food, things are going to come late. You're going to have to ask 3 times to get a drink, a refill.
I think we asked the question correctly, because you can be friendly and still get your food, but it's just going to be a little slower than the person that isn't too busy trying to please you.
Because you figure, what makes it slow is that if they're friendly with you and talking about oh, your day and this and that, what are you guys up to and what are you going to do? They're doing that with every table. So it just, it makes things take long. And I don't know. I mean, maybe we're being very first world about it. I want my food fast. I don't know. I want it to.
I don't even think it's a matter of I want it fast. I just want it in a timely manner where I'm not, having to ask my server, hey, where's this? Or, where's that?
I asked you for that. You didn't get that.
There was a situation where I asked someone for coffee 3 different times, and it literally was and honestly, this person wasn't even nice. They were honestly completely rude. But I had to keep reminding her, and finally she brought it. Yeah. And,
and that's the thing. People that get mad, and maybe you've just never worked in a restaurant, but when you get mad for food issues, you're waiting on food or something came out wrong, it's they're the server, they're not the cook. They only can bring out the stuff that's there. Correct. Maybe it's the cooks that are taking long. But when it's what you said, can I get a refill on coffee? Can I get a another utensils, some more napkins, and that takes long. It's that's kind of all waitress or waiter.
That is literally something that you're supposed to take care of. So
I'm gonna stick with my rude, but just on it.
So am I. Yeah. I just I get it. I know a lot of people believe that customer service is dead, and that's something that we've lost through, the last maybe 10 years. We've seen it really die out. When we met through a company where it was customer service based, and it was very, very important, and we were trained on it very well.
I still have that customer service voice.
Yeah,
I can't help it when I get on the phone with someone. Even when I'm calling to complain about my bill, I'm just the nicest. Hey, so sorry to bug you. Even though that's their job, is to hear what my complaint or what I need. But yeah, I don't know. It's just
I get that it's still important, and I think we definitely shouldn't lose that. But I also think there's things that are a little bit more important than a beautiful smile. I want my food done right, and I want it brought out, promptly. And I don't want to hear about your day. I'm sorry, I know that's mean. I know that's mean, but I didn't plan my date to go out and find out what my server is doing.
So funny,
I'm sorry.
Didn't ask you.
I'm
That's
sorry.
Crazy. But
I sound like a total bee, but I'm just being real.
I keeps it real.
I'll ask you if you ask. I know we're dragging this, but if you ask a server, then okay, they should tell you. But there's some people that literally go out of their way and tell you their whole life story, and you're like, I don't care.
Yeah. Can I do the top sirloin and eggs? My dog died today. Okay.
All right. Sorry. God, that was way too long.
You did 6 minutes.
That was way too long.
That's a Guinness.
I just don't get it. Why do people want to go with it? Okay, let's go.
So we'll keep the would you rather. Hopefully, like I said, we haven't done one in a while. So let's keep it going.
Yeah.
We'll post one right away, and if
we'll try to find catchy ones like that.
Yeah, respond again, and if you haven't, join in on the fun. So.
Yes.
Okay, so today we're actually talking about something something that is very, very near and dear to our hearts because we are one. We're going to be talking about blended families and some of the, I guess, struggles and hiccups and just hurdles that you kind of go through as a blended family from, from the whole stages of when you meet, you guys are dating, when to like introduce, your kids or your child to the new person. And then the whole moving in, and then the getting engaged, and then the marriage, the wedding, and just all of it. So, it's a very, very, I'd say like, it's not a long process. I mean, it's a very,
it's a journey.
It's a journey. There you go.
It's a journey.
And, a lot of it's kind of like walking on eggshells and tiptoeing, because there's just, there's just different things. There's awkwardness. There's, embarrassment, I guess, or there's just like, I don't know, you don't want to mess up and you're over trying, but then maybe I'm not trying enough, and there's different sides to it.
Right.
You're either the person that has, bringing the children or the child into the relationship, and or you're the person that's coming into it where maybe you don't have kids, and now you're a stepdad or a stepmom. Or maybe you guys are in a situation where it's Brady Bunch status and, both of you have kids. And then that's even, obviously more personalities involved, the more emotions are involved. And so it can get pretty crazy. And I'm sure that anyone that's listening that has a blended family or has been a part of one, maybe growing up, you know exactly where we're coming from. So we wanted to kind of hit on that today. And just like with mostly all of our other episodes, we kind of want to just give like bullet points, kind of have a list of some of the things we gathered from just different articles we found on blended families, and then just give our kind of insight from our own experience. So, and again, well, what I want to point out, and I don't know if I brought this up with Jess, but like just going through all of it, almost every single episode we do, no matter what topic we're discussing, it really, and this one's no different, it always comes down to the foundation of communication. Like, communication is key in getting through this journey. Because it's a never-ending journey. Obviously, your kids get older, and maybe the relationship, I mean, I would hope and imagine your relationship gets stronger with your kids and your stepkids. And it's not even like your relationship with them, but like if you have, again, where you guys both had kids and brought them in, the relationships between the siblings as well, because, and we'll kind of discuss that, it's not just right away like, oh, you're my new stepbrother and you're my new stepsister, like, let's just be best friends. Like, no, There's a lot of like, who are you? Why are you here? And I hate your face. Like, I mean, if you've seen the movie Step Brothers with Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly, I mean, maybe to not that extreme.
Well, there's a little bit of accuracy in
right?
that.
But it can be like that. So
I got a stepbrother. I get it. I get it.
So yeah, I mean, it's, but it comes down, again, like I was saying, it comes down to communication, open communication with your spouse, open communication with your children, open communication as a family, is just so key. So,
open communication with all parties involved.
Yeah, it's just,
and that's even with the outside people.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
those that aren't in your the immediate family, So, so yeah, we'll get started. And the first one, I think it really opens the door for it. It's unrealistic expectations, and I think that is like, because everyone has an idea of like how they want their life to be or what their life's going to be. And then of course, when you start a new relationship, you have this idea of what or maybe like what you want it to be and what you think it's going to be. And then of course, as you get engaged and then you take the leap and you guys get married, you have this like idea. It's an expectation of like, everything's going to be great. And, if you're someone with kids, that person's going to love my kids and then my kids are going to love them. And we're just going to be the whole one big happy family. And hey, if right off the bat, all that does happen, kudos to you. Like, you hit a grand slam right on the first pitch. That's awesome.
You should play the lottery.
Yeah,
You're
right.
super lucky.
But it obviously, in reality, it usually doesn't work like that. You actually have to put in work for it to get to that level. So yeah, and it could seem like an uphill battle, but you just keep pushing, because what else is there more important than to continue to push for and fight for than your spouse and your family? So yeah, the unrealistic expectations is big. It's not going to be great right off the bat, but it's something that you work towards with, again, open communication and some of the other things that we're going to talk about with the list here.
I think one of the unrealistic expectations are one of the unrealistic thoughts that I had when you and I first got together and decided to pursue the relationship with me already having a child. I had a very unrealistic idea of what you were going to look like as a step parent. And I felt like you should already know what you need to do. And you didn't have kids. I mean, you didn't have any kids at the time. You were just a single guy, a bachelor guy, and you didn't have any children. And I already had a 6-year-old child. So for me to think that just by you saying yes to the relationship and taking on this responsibility, I thought you knew what you needed to do. And that was a very unrealistic expectation, for my part, because I didn't really, honestly, like just what you said in the opening of this episode, like communication. I didn't communicate what it is that I expected or what I desired from our relationship, as like boyfriend and girlfriend, or, hopefully in the future, husband and wife. But more importantly, as a step parent, I didn't communicate that with you. And I just had this very unrealistic idea of what it was going to look like. And boy, was I surprised.
Yeah.
And, I mean, a lot of people do, because as a single mom, I just thought, well, if he loves me, he's going to automatically love my child, which you did, but your love for my child was very different. And it was more of a learning experience, more than just like, I'm going to take on and I'm going to, become a dad all of a sudden. Like, it was a learning experience for you. And I just automatically expected you to just be a dad from one day to the next, and it didn't, that's not how it was. I mean, I don't want to jump way ahead, but it took a lot of years to get to that point where, okay, I'm seeing some, father, like roles here come, and a little bit of situations where that, started to show a little bit more. But anyways, hopefully I didn't jump ahead, but
no, yeah, I mean, to kind of talk on that, yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said, it was very unrealistic, and I remember those early days, and then when I moved in, because you were the responsible one that had like a house, and I was just kind of crashing every day, and you were just like, you're going to crash, you're going to pay rent.
It's like, yeah, you need to start paying rent here, buddy. This is not going to work out.
But yeah, no, I remember those first years, and really, I think I shared it with you, kind of breaking down to both like my dad and to my cousin, who is older than me, or we're kind of like the same age, but because he was really close to us, and he was always over, and he, right away, because he's just good with kids. He's just a good guy. And, our son right away just responded to him because he responded to him. He knew how to talk to a little kid. He knew how to play with them and do things like that. And I remember telling them both, like, man, I don't know how to do that. Like, it's not even a matter of like, oh, I feel like I'll get it. Like, I was confident that I don't think I'm ever going to be able to do this, because it was kind of weird, because I know I've told you, like, I only have one sibling who is almost practically 10 years older than me. So I never really had even like a brother to kind of grow up with. I mean, I had my cousin, so I understand that. But like, I was always the youngest. I was the youngest, me and my brother. For the longest, I was the youngest in like on my dad's side of the family. I was always like the baby. So like I was the little kid. Like I never knew how to be around other little kids. So it was just a hard time. And like, yeah, I just think back to who I was and where I was coming from before I met you too. And like you said, kind of like just living a bachelor life too.
But to be fair, and I don't think we've ever really talked about this, is, you talk about how easy it was for your cousin to make this connection with our son.
Mm-hmm.
Right off the bat, it was just like a very friendly, very playful type of relationship where, that he would mess around with our son and just kind of joke around with him. And I think when you're not expected to play a certain role in someone's life, you don't have that pressure.
Yeah.
And you immediately felt that pressure because you were fairly young. I mean, you were in your early 20s, and all of a sudden here's this, 5-6-year-old child that is looking up to you as like, are you my dad or what are you?
What do we do here?
How's this gonna go? Like, how's this gonna flow? So you immediately felt that pressure, and that really begins to complicate what could have just really flowed into an organic relationship as friends. But because, and this is where we made a huge mistake, and I know it's not one of the points that we put on here, but we never had a conversation. We never had a conversation about, okay, is this a good idea? You know what? I'm going to say that in a way I'm grateful that we didn't, because I think if we really would have talked about it, we probably would have overthought the situation and we probably would have talked ourselves out of our relationship. Like, just being 100% real. Just because where we were at the time, we were really young and just, we were both in crazy spaces. But anyways, I digress. We didn't have a conversation, and there was really no time for us to slowly introduce you to our son. There was just like, bam, here's my boyfriend. Yeah, by the way, this is moving really quickly.
Yeah, he's now living with us.
He's probably going to live with us within the first maybe 3 months. Now, none of this was healthy. I want to say that none of this was healthy, but I mean, this is just how it happened. This is just the truth. But I don't regret how we went about our relationship.
That's how it was supposed to be. That's how you have to look
exactly.
at it.
But I do feel that there could have been some things done a little bit more gently and a little bit more carefully to make the transition a lot smoother, but we didn't, So I just want to say that there was a lot of things working against you and my son,
Exactly.
So I don't think we've never really talked about that, but I think your cousin had a much easier conversation with him and an interaction with him because there was no pressure. You got to go home.
Exactly. And just like, when, really quick, like, it's like when you tell your friends are gonna come over, and you're just like, I just want to apologize in advance. Like, my kids can get crazy and they can be this and they can do that, and then they come over and like your kids are just angels, and you're like, their friends kind of look at you like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. I think your kids are great, and it's like, but then as soon as they leave, they turn back into it.
You have no idea who they are when you leave.
Exactly.
Behind closed doors, they are the devil themselves.
Yeah, when you don't have that responsibility of like the day in and day out of being, that person, then I can understand that.
Yeah, so exactly.
But well, would it like the big conflicts that can come up from that, or from not having good communication to start things off, leads into the next point, where it's loyalty conflicts. This is a big one for us. And really this is something that I think I'll let you kind of take the lead on, because it really is from the perspective of the parent, like our situation perfectly. Like, one parent, or one spouse has a kid or children, and then the other one's coming into it maybe with no kids, or not bringing kids into the relationship. And it leads into that, okay, now I have a new spouse, but then I also have my child. And how does that Because obviously, a mother's always going to, it's their kid. That's how it really should be. However, and we've learned this along the way. Again, how we talk about, we went to marriage class and we learned a lot about like our relationship, our value, to each other, our the importance of one another. Learning that your spouse comes before a lot of things. So it's hard to kind of like balance that, or to kind of figure like, oh, number one, number two, number three,
right?
Especially when it's blended. It's hard enough even when you have like, you guys just both own biological kids, but then when you add in the dynamic of like, well, that's not my dad, and like it was me and you before, now there's he's here, and then from the perspective of the person coming into it is sort of like, well, this is our new relationship, we have to put work into it, we need our time, and it can get very, very hectic and messy, I guess.
Yeah, this particular point, I want to say, and just be 100% transparent, I think almost ended our marriage. I think was one of the hardest things for me to get over and to get by, because it was such a constant in my mind. And I can only speak from, my perspective, my view as a single mom. But I do feel that, I think even if you're not a single mom, but, maybe a single dad, or a dad in a relationship and you have a child that that you're bringing into a new relationship, a new marriage or whatnot. So I don't think it has anything to do with just being a mom. I think just a parent in general. If you have a child, you can be very territorial over them.
Of course.
You tend to just create this bubble and you feel like nobody else in the world but you can care for them and protect them the way that you can. I developed that because I was a single mom, and because I did a lot of the parenting on my own. My mom helped me so much. I don't know how I would have done it without my mom, but I didn't have a lot of support from the father of my child. From my first marriage, there was very little involvement, and the little that was there wasn't very healthy. So I took this role of protector, defender, provider, like everything that you can think of. I was that. My son was everything for me. So when this whole loyalty bullet point was brought up, the first thing that I remember was how much I isolated you, Derick, from every decision that I made for my son. And in the beginning of the relationship, I didn't see anything wrong because I was just what I was used to doing. When I saw that this wasn't right, the whole dynamic of our relationship was not right, was when we started getting into the teenage years. And now I needed you as my husband and as the stepfather to take authority and to like, hey, you gotta do something, because I don't know what the hell we're gonna do with this kid. He's freaking driving us off the wall. But I was screaming and crying and begging as I was realizing that I had completely isolated you from the parenting role. And at that point, a lot of things started coming up, because I realized that there was a lot of resentment, not just from you, but from my son, from our son, from, my first son, and myself, because I was just upset. And again, the unrealistic expectations of like, well, you should have just known what to do. Well, you couldn't, because I wasn't even allowing you to do any of these things. So, that whole loyalty thing, I didn't understand that it wasn't about being loyal to my, to my firstborn, or to you, or to me. it was about being loyal to the family and what is the best and most important thing that we can do for our family, you know? And it took a very, very long time. And I think around year 7 that you and I were married, like it became real. Like, oh crap, we might not make it. Like, we really might not make it past this point, because at this point, the tension between the three of us was so bad that we could not even coexist in the same room anymore. Like, it had gotten so toxic.
Yeah, and that literally, like you said, it just kind of built up to that.
Oh,
and the build up, or what caused that build up, was again just not communicating expectations of one another. And then, like you said, you always wanting to hang on to that kind of control because, like you said, you were a single mom. That's what you knew. That's how you knew how to parent. And that was kind of the whole, or not unrealistic, but like expectations of going into it, like talking with your spouse, like, okay, this is how I parent my child. This is how I discipline them. This is the rules I set. This is kind of like or how I do it. And we need to discuss how you fit into that, how you're going to come on board, how we're going to like approach him. And we never did that. We kind of just rolled the dice and went with it. And it was on both sides not healthy, because you didn't want to relinquish that authority or just role of the parent. And I was very hesitant to want to, and I wouldn't say take the reins like from you, but to even be involved, because it was like easier. And I was already like, I don't know how to do it. You seem like you're doing a great job, so I'll just let you have it. But obviously it didn't work, because, like when we needed to be a team, it wasn't like, and then it was not fair for you, it wasn't fair for me, and it definitely wasn't fair for our son to just like, okay, from 6 to 13, it's been your mom, but now that you're like a teenager and becoming a man, like, I'm going to be the authoritative figure now because I'm a man in the house. And it's sort of like, dude, who are you? Like, you've never done anything for me, or not for me, but like, you've never been the one that I had to go to. Because like growing up, it was always like, well, I'm going to go ask mom. Can I go somewhere? Can I do something? Can I get something? Like, and I was just kind of there, like, oh,
I was just gonna say, I was gonna bring up the next thing was not the next point, but one of the next things under this bullet point is I became the middle person. That either you would tell me like, hey, Isaiah's like, I'm sorry, I said his name.
Well, if people know.
Yeah. He's doing this, and, it wasn't necessarily like you trying to rat or complain about him, but it was you expressing how you felt about something that he did. And then vice versa, he would turn around like, well, Derick's doing this. And I became this middle person.
Yeah.
And the pressure became so heavy for me, because then I felt it's like, well, then who do I side with here? And then we had the church like, well, your husband, comes before everything. And it's like, okay, but what if like I'm seeing both points here, and I'm seeing that they both have a reason to be upset. So what the hell do I do with that? And
yeah, I
became so overwhelming and we had so many conversations about this. I mean, I remember just crying so many times and like, I really need your help. But again, like, I just look back on it now and I'm like, I was asking for help, but yet expecting or hoping that you did it, that you didn't really help. And it was so unfair.
Sorry to cut you off, but I mean, like, literally what this section is called, like loyalty conflicts, is also loyalty where we were kind of like, not testing you, but like putting you in that situation, because you had your son who obviously is fighting for, your love and your attention because you're his mom. But then you have me throughout the whole relationship fighting for your love and your attention because I'm your husband. And it kind of like, I think I brought it up where like it really pinned, or like it really felt like him and I were, it was almost like instead of like a dad or stepdad and son, it was like brothers.
Like sibling rivalry.
Yeah. Where it's like, well, look what I can do. Well, look what I can do. Like she came to talk to me first. Like, and it wasn't healthy. And it I felt like I was just drowning in it, because the times that you would, kind of break down and tell me, like, I would feel so, like, obviously upset, or so, like, yeah, like, sad, or I don't know what the heck's the word, like,
disappointed.
Like guilty. There you go. Think of a word. I felt guilty because it's like, yeah, I should be doing it. Like, why can't I do this? And what do I? How do I start? And this and that. So, yeah, the loyalty thing really, it went different ways there, and it definitely caused a lot of, like, wall between the three of us. You and him and I, you and I. So definitely, it's.
And once the other two kids came in, forget it.
Yeah, I don't even know where they're going to come in on this list. How that?
Well,
it goes into it with siblings.
As the loyalty, because at this point they were already. Yeah. I mean, let's just be honest. Our middle child was within the first year you and I got together.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. It didn't even give a chance.
I'm here.
Yeah,
and
right.
That
so,
again, like we said, the transition of that, all of that happened so quickly, but. Anyhow, yeah, we can go into the next point.
Well, the next point kind of meshes. The next three, I should say, kind of all mesh in. So I'll just list them, and then we'll just have a conversation on them. The next one would be relationships with the ex. So you kind of was already hitting on that a little bit earlier. The one after that's neglecting co-parenting responsibilities. So that would involve co-parenting. So if you are fortunate enough to have an ex, or the ex, or the dad, or the mom, to be still involved, and then involved in your child's life, then great. But it also requires more from you and from your new spouse. And then the next point after that is lack of boundaries. So I just really want to, for the first two, relationships with the ex, and then in co-parenting. So our unique story with that.
Very unique.
So as Jess mentioned, our son's father was around, in the sense of, like, we knew where he was at, and our son knew where he was at for the most part. And they would talk, I would say inconsistently, see each other. Which, it's sort of like, it makes it hard, because it's like, on one side of the spectrum, let's say you have a parent that's, very, very much involved, and they, like, have joint custody, and they see them every weekend, and on summers they go there for 1 month or a month and a half or whatever, and it's very consistent, and they talk to them throughout the week. Yeah, then it's just like happy-go-lucky, and it's like, oh, everything's great. Like, this is an easy, like, thing, the easy transition. And then the other side of the spectrum is they're just gone. Like, we never heard from them again. They just, well, I'm out. I'm not a parent. And it's sad to say, both of those are better than kind of what we had, where it's like, he's still there. So obviously it's in the child's life, and he gets reminded here and there. But then, like, when they need them, or they really want to be with them, they kind of let them down, or they don't show up, or they're just not consistent. And it causes more problems and pain. So, yeah, that's kind of what we went through. And it was a bad situation in regards to the relationship between our son and his dad. Now, what I want to say, what the unique thing about it, which it's going to sound bad because I described him like that, but, it's going to sound bad on our part. But the unique thing about it was that when he was around, the three of us all got along. Like, you and him obviously got along because you guys were married before, and you've known each other since you were, like, so young. And you even said it. You're probably better friends than anything.
Oh,
we
should have been friends.
You guys were always good friends. And with me, like, I don't know, and we even say it to this day. I have no idea why I never had a dislike for him. I never felt threatened by him. I, like, almost to where it's like, maybe I, like, blocked it out, like, that you guys were married and had a kid. Because to me, it was like, he was just a friend that you had, and, like...
Exactly. Right. We were just really good friends. And it was so unique to the point that he even lived with us for a little bit.
It's like, I need a place to stay. Like, sure, that's fine, man. Like, come hang out. And that's the thing. So, like, him and I,
That's where the lack of boundaries come.
Yeah, we'll talk about lack of boundaries. Him and I, like I said, we hit it off well. Like, he's big into sports. I was big into sports. We talked about, things like that. and we would go play basketball, and like it was just kind of like all of a sudden like, oh yeah, that's my friend, and people would like bring it up, and we would forget.
They would
like,
trip
why
out.
why are you tripping? Like, why are you being weird? But it's like now that we look back on it, it's like, oh yeah, that was kind of weird. No wonder they would bring that up. Like,
he went to our wedding.
Yeah, he was
at
like,
our kids' parties. Like,
yeah.
I mean, him and I had more of like even like a sibling kind of relationship. It's kind of weird. I know
very awkward.
It sounds weird. I know, but you know, it just when him and I were done, like we were just done. You know, so and when you and I met, I mean, we were most definitely done. And I think we just kept such a good friendship. I mean, it was always weird because we had a good friendship, but when it came to the parenting part,
that's the only thing.
I despised him. I hated the way that he just didn't take responsibility. Until this day, there's a lot of things that I have still resentment over, and I know that I'm, still kind of working on healing those areas. But when it came to the parenting part, we'll keep it at that because that's what we're talking about today. But I just, it was hard. It was hard. It was hard to really have, like you said, a good flow because it was very inconsistent. So at the end of the day, I think maybe I'm just kind of throwing this out there. Maybe that's why you felt a little bit more pressure because you kind of felt that you had to make up, not only as the stepfather, but I think also as the actual father. Mm-hmm. I think you really did. And I mean, at the end, just to fast forward a little bit to where we're at now, I mean, I see the relationship my son, our son, that you and him have. It's like, it's amazing, and even though I just want to say, I don't think it's necessarily like a father and son kind of relationship that you would think of, I don't know, like that you see like on TV or whatever. Yeah. But it's unique in its own way, and I think it's very, very strong. And I don't, without a doubt in my mind, that our son does not consider you, his father. Like, there's not a doubt in my mind. If you would have asked me that 5 years ago, I would have been like, heck no. Like, I don't know when that's going to change.
I would have seconded that.
Because it was just so hard to get to where we're at now.
Yeah.
But the boundaries part, I wish I would have set more boundaries because I think that created a lot of confusion between our son and his dad and us. It was very confusing. I don't think it was a healthy situation. I think we should have demanded a little bit more from his father. I mean, I don't know where we would have gone, like what we would have gotten out of him, but I think if we would have just been a lot more firm with, hey, these are the days. If you don't show up, that's on you. I mean, there's just things that we could have set very firm boundaries so our son felt more secure and protected. And I think that's something that we didn't do. And I would recommend anyone that's in a situation, I know that you don't want to be, because I know there's like court order things and stuff like that. Like, if you don't necessarily have a court order, but maybe you can write something, have it notarized, like, hey, this is our agreement and this is what we're going to do. Because I don't care how much of a friend you are with your ex or whatever, the health of your child and the mental health and the emotional health of your child trumps all of that, so
and just really quick, going back to the co-parenting thing too, I think you and I have talked about that before, where like if you have a spouse that's involved, really like, becoming like, what do we call it, like a three-headed monster when it comes to attacking the parenting responsibilities, because and that kind of goes with setting boundaries to where and keeping the communication, or allowing your new spouse to be involved in those decisions, obviously too, because you have the two biological parents, but now you have a third person that has a pretty equal say in like how they're going to raise that child, because that child's theirs now too.
And
so,
I just want to say there could even be a fourth person involved. There was a point in our
exactly.
son's life where, and we're actually, good friends with this person. She was involved as the fourth party, and now it's like, now it got all complicated because now we have four different voices. And if you don't have some kind of set plan or agreement or something, there's going to be a lot of opinions flowing through your children's head. And that's going to really complicate, I think, the situation, because who are they loyal to?
Yeah.
You
bring in more people, the more people there is, the more emotions, and the more like, okay, well, they said this, and then, now you're saying that, and blah, blah, blah. So again, having the open communication and involving all parties that are going to be a voice to that child, or involved in their life, being responsible about it and being all involved in that. So, but yeah, definitely with the boundaries, and it's even a matter of setting up boundaries. Like if you're the stepdad or the stepmom, and it also depends, of course, on the age of the children or the child, boundaries with them. Like, hey, having that communication and dialogue, like, I'm not here to step on your mom's or your dad's toes. I'm here to, because I love your mom or I love your dad, and I want to be involved in your life, but it'll be at your pace. Like how whatever you want, I'm here to support you. Like if you're not cool with calling me mom or calling me dad, that's fine. Like, things like that, like setting up boundaries with them, because it allows them to get more comfortable with you, obviously, and like, they don't just feel like you're just some weirdo living with them now.
Yeah.
So definitely, all those things, the relationship with the ex, co-parenting, and then setting up boundaries for your new formed family is important, because you're setting up a foundation for growth.
I think this kind of goes well into the next point. Conflicts with stepchildren.
Yeah.
And this, we have a few bullet points on this also. Guilty parenting. Don't try to be your stepkid's best friend. Don't engage in parenting behavior yet, and avoid favoritism toward your biological kids.
Yeah, so the one that kind of stood out to me, again, because I think that's talking to the parent that's coming into it that maybe didn't have kids and is now considered I'll just say stepdad, because that's what it was, where it says don't engage in parenting behavior yet. Because, and it goes back to what I was saying, starting that dialogue with the child, kind of coming to them like, hey, I know I'm not your parent. I'm here to just have a relationship with you. I want to get to know you. I want to talk, what questions do you have for me? I have questions about you. What do you like? What do you know? Things like that. You become, I guess I could say, you become their friend, but you become their parent, because you can't expect someone to respect and listen to you and, do what you want them to do, if they don't know who you are. And I think that was something too that I went into in a wrong way, because I skipped over the whole, I'm not going to even try to really connect with you, but I'm going to tell you need to clean your room and you need to do this and you need to do that. You can't discipline someone. They're not going to respond, or they're going to respond in a very negative, maybe even, temper-filled way.
You need to build a rapport with someone, and you
that's
can't
anything,
just come in and be an authoritative role.
Exactly. That's even in the workplace. Like if you're a new manager, the first day you're not going to come in, cracking heads. Like, no, you need to get to know who you're working with. But yeah, that was the one thing that stood out to me, which honestly I think led into a lot of the other ones we said, where you don't try to be their best friend, and then guilty parenting, because it's I know, and that's for both of us too, where we just we felt so guilty about the situation that our son was in, and the transition that he had to do, and like we mentioned, we had kids at a very early stage of our marriage, and he had to then deal with that. So then we had spouts of just parenting in the bad way of letting him do things and get away with things and blah blah blah, because we didn't, we were trying to make up for stuff, and that's just the wrong way to go, because it's just not going to set a good precedent with him,
and,
or with your child.
Just to be fair, I think that can happen in any parent situation. I
Of
think
course.
even if it's not necessarily a stepchild, it can happen with your biological children of, the guilty parenting, because we all feel, I don't know if it's just the parent curse or whatever, but like we've never done enough, haven't done enough, we'll never do enough. So we get stuck on this role of just like guilty parenting, and we let them get away with things or whatever. But I think in our situation, because we went about things so quickly and we didn't take the time to ask questions and have conversations with the three of us, like, because of that, the guilty parenting was one of the biggest things that I want to say that I think led to a lot of our issues towards the end before he moved out, because there was a lot of things we let him slide. There was a lot of things we let him get away with, things we should have never, ever allowed in our home. And it was because we felt like we, didn't do enough or did too much or whatever, whatever it is that we felt that we were lacking as parents at the time. It just led into such just very toxic behaviors from all three of us. And, now that I think about it and I look back in hindsight, I think like, whoa, we could have parented in a way where it was very firm, but still loving. And we didn't, because we were both trying to make up for so much that we felt like we lacked in. So that guilty parenting, man, if you don't like nip that in the bud before it gets out of control, it can really cause some real damage in your family, because we just feel so responsible for so many things that sometimes it's things that we just don't know, and you don't know until you do. It's a learning process, just like you were talking about. It's just a journey. Everything that we're going through, everything that we're learning about our children, about our marriage, about our relationship. I mean, it's some things are just new, and you're not going to know what to do until you've done the wrong thing, So,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a journey for, like you said, if you're a step parent or if it's just with your regular kids, learning all these, the ins and out. No one's given a book. I mean, well, there is so many books on how to raise kids and parenting, but it's different for every, every situation and every family. But yeah, being when it's, you're blended and you start dealing with like the step version of everything, it can become very hard for both parents. So, definitely I can relate to all of those. And the last one on there was like avoid favoritism towards your biological kids. I think that one is, designed more towards maybe again, I call it the Brady Bunch status, where, you have kids, but then now you have stepchildren, and your wife has kids, but now she has your kids, where it can just be like, and it's not even, maybe you're not even doing it consciously, where it's like, you're favoring your kids, but obviously you're more comfortable with your own kids. You could be more natural and more yourself with your children, especially obviously in the early stages. And then with like your spouse's kids, you're still like trying to figure out, even though you know how to maybe be a dad, you're still like tap dancing for them. Like, okay, well, what do I do here? And what do I do this? And it can just, and your stepchildren will pick up on that. Like, well, why does it always feel so tense and awkward when it's you and us? But then when I see you with your kids, it's natural. And it's like, how do you explain that to them? Especially if they're younger. Now, if you have like teenagers, God bless you, because that's it's going to be hard as it is. But I mean, they're at least the age where you feel more comfortable to talk to them. Like, well, this is the situation. Obviously, I'm trying to get to know you, and I'm sorry if it feels awkward. But, if they're like 4 and 5, like, how do you explain that to them? They're little,
I think it's because when you have children of your own, and they're babies and they're newborns, it's like a fresh mold. It's like a fresh little mold that you get to kind of shape in some ways, because eventually they do grow up and they decide to fit into whatever mold they want to. but you kind of have a little bit of say into how you want to kind of shape your children a little bit. When you have a stepchild, no matter what age, they've already kind of began their molding process, you know, and there's already been influences and there's already been voices way before you. So it gets a little complicated, and you are, I think, as a step parent, I've never had that role of a step parent, but I've seen it, you know, in you, and I can tell the hesitation that you had into trying to even just show him things that you liked, you know, because you felt like, I mean, I'm not saying this is how you felt, but I'm assuming that maybe you felt like, well, maybe somebody else already showed him something. Maybe, you know, I'm a little too late for this, you know, even though he was only about 6 years old, he was still really young. But I think for you, never having any children, seeing a 6-year-old, you're like, oh my God, well, he's already grown up. You know, you didn't start at a little infant. You started at a, you know, now elementary kid. So I think it can be a little intimidating, but it's just, have your own children, it's very different. But the last thing I want to say, with the avoiding favoritism towards your biological kids, we didn't necessarily have that situation. Our situation was a little different because when both of our kids were our biological kids, between you and I, between Derick and I, when we had our boys at 2 and 3, they were both diagnosed with autism. So what happened was that it's not necessarily that we were trying to favor them. It's that the attention that they needed now was a lot more demanding than our older son needed at the time. And it wasn't necessarily favoritism. It was just that the circumstances changed, and it wasn't us now parenting 3 typical developed children. Now we have a typical developed kid and 2 special needs children.
Yeah.
And that took a lot of our attention from our oldest, unfortunately. And I think we got so overly consumed with both of their diagnoses because they were literally back to back. They both got diagnosed very quickly, very closely. I'm sorry.
Well, because they're born in the same year.
Yeah, they were born in the same year. Yes, we had one in January and one in December of the same year. Don't ask how that happened. But it just, a lot of things changed very quickly, and it might have seemed from the outside that we were favoring our 2 youngest, but it wasn't that. It was just that we were now put into a whole new situation that we had no clue how we were going to handle. But that'll be another episode.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
We're not going to go there. But I wanted to say that it wasn't favoritism in this situation, but it was taking our attention from our oldest.
Yeah,
and I think
for sure.
he most definitely felt that. Yeah. I truly believe that.
Which that'll lead, I mean, it leads into the last point we have. Before we get there, the one that we're going to hit next is disagreements about new family rules. And that we can kind of hit on really quick because we felt like we've talked about it, where that just talks about, discussing parenting skills with your spouse, maybe even before they are your spouse, like maybe before you move in, if you move in before you get married, which that everyone should do that because that just makes sense. But you just have an open conversation about it, like we talked about, like this is how I parent, this is how I discipline, this is how I do things. I wish I
would have done what I would have done differently if I could go back and do it differently. I think I would have had a conversation between the 3 of us and talked about how parenting looked before Derick came to the picture and how is parenting going to look like now that Derick is in the picture. We really robbed ourselves of that opportunity because it was just that expectation or those, just false, or I'm sorry, those,
false hopes of that it would just happen.
Yes, like it was just gonna happen. It was just it's gonna figure itself out one way or another. But that is something that I wish we would have done. And I wish I would have taken the initiative, because honestly, it really was up to me to like, hey, this is how I parent him now. But now that you're here, it's important for us to parent together.
Yeah.
You know,
and then
at the proper time, obviously.
And like you mentioned, having him involved in that conversation, where it's like, okay, which leads to the next thing where it says, don't leave rules open for interpretation, where it's like, okay, we just expect him, just like how you mentioned, you expected me to kind of know all these things. We both kind of expected our son to just be cool with everything and understand the dynamic of the new family, and like, okay, I know that mom's been the authority here, but I now have to understand that, stepdad or Derick is too, and and it's like, how would he know that as a 6-year-old child when
how would he know that if you and I didn't know that?
Exactly.
If you guys wonder why Derick and I talk so freaking much, this is why. Because we've had years and years of like, years and years of talking until we finally communicated.
Right, because you can talk, but
you can talk, but
that's good. That should be like a book.
We talked
until
we finally communicated, and we weren't just blowing smoke up each other's butt, telling each other what we want to hear. Like, no, we talked until we actually communicated, and now we can be honest with each other. And that is one thing that it wasn't until Derick and I got 100% clear with what we wanted from each other, expected from each other. It wasn't until that we became better parents. Like, just really. Because we were pulling our kids left and right. And I mean, I'm not saying that we don't do that now. There's times that, sometimes there's certain ways that maybe you want to parent our children. And then I'm like, because I'm a mom, and it's always going to look differently because I'm a woman and I'm more towards nurturing and loving and caring, and you're a man, and it's just gonna look different. But it doesn't mean that we don't have the same end goal. And
it's hard, because obviously we see things through our eyes, which we always talked about that. Like, we always said that saying is kind of like, not dumb, but it's just like, well, I see the world through my eyes. Well, yes.
No shit, Sherlock.
That's how that works. But we see this situation through our eyes in the sense of like, mom that had a child, dad coming in to be stepdad. But you just mentioned something like that where, because you said like, I'm the mom and that's just how it's going to be. Because you, especially with having a son, it's the whole mama bear thing. But it's like, for those of you guys who maybe are a dad that has a son and you meet a new woman and she doesn't have any children, you guys get married, but your ex is very still involved. Now there's a whole other relationship between two women who you have a mom, an ex-mom or an ex-wife that's like
that, bro. No,
that's like, hey, this new woman's now going to try and be my son's mom. Like, hell no. So that's rough.
I never felt that towards my ex-husband's girlfriend at the time. I never really felt that because she communicated so well with me, but I got very lucky. I got very lucky that she's just an awesome girl and very respectful, and I knew she loved my son. And I knew she had the best interest for him, I think even more than his dad did at some points. But I got very lucky with that. Yeah. But I have seen in other situations where it's not very pretty. And we will pray for y'all because that is a hard, as a mom, there's just no way. Yeah. Like, it's hard to trust someone. I don't care if it's a boy or a girl. It's hard to trust someone with your children, period. So
I just remember one time, I forgot even what it was, but we were eating and I think our son said something like, oh, well, I like the way that she makes it better. And I just remember like, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take my plate into the room. You go ahead, and I just kind of gave him the blessing, like, you messed up, but
he didn't get dinner for a month after that, but
so definitely the whole setting up that dialogue to where and having both parents and children or child involved in that, and kind of goes with the setting boundaries in the beginning. It's important. Again, communication.
Yes.
Communication.
Talk.
Yeah. And then the last thing, really quick before we wrap it up, was tension among the siblings, and we kind of hit on that with our son and then our two biological boys. The autism, obviously any parents of special needs children, you guys understand. Or even those that maybe have special needs children in their families, nephews, nieces, or just close friends that have children like that. You understand what it can be like. So it was a lot. And, there were ups and downs with it. And, we, looking back on it, realized how much. And it wasn't that we, purposely, or I wouldn't even say consciously, decided, oh, well, we're just going to spend more time and put more focus on our two special needs boys than on our our firstborn. That's kind of how things just go. But we realized it, and we have talked to our son about it, and I always say, everything obviously happens for a reason. How our journey went was how it was supposed to go. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying now, fast forwarding, the relationship between our oldest and the two boys is there's just sometimes it's just great. Sometimes I just sit back and I look at the three of them and I realize man, it feels like they are three brothers from the same all family. Yeah,
so it's crazy. And honestly, I think if you were to ask our son, our oldest, if he felt in any way neglected or he wasn't really part of us or anything like that, I would say that he would say no. I don't think he ever really felt like that. But we know that there was some things that fell through the cracks because of the focus and the attention that we had on our two special needs children. So I think he would probably say, no, you guys were great. You guys did the best that you could. But I think as a parent, and maybe that's just how I feel because, again, that's the parent curse, feel like you never do enough. But I know that there was things that did fall through the cracks because we were just, very...
consumed by...
Yeah. Honestly, the diagnosis of autism came and kind of took us down like a wave. It was just whoa, wait a minute. What do we do? And how is this going to change? And then it went from... just having two young, little kids, two little toddlers, to now you have ABA therapy and you have occupational therapy and you have people in your home and you have doctors telling you this and telling you. So it was, I'm not making excuses, but it was very, very overwhelming. And I think our son, for as young as he was, I think he saw it. And he went through... just as much as we went through the roller coaster of it, I know he went through it too. So I think he kind of sympathizes or empathizes with us, and through that situation. But at the end of the day, it wasn't his responsibility to feel that and to carry that. It was us. So,
and that's that's obviously our experience with it, right. For those that maybe it is a little bit different, just kind of some advice, I guess, from what we got from these articles on the points of, when you have tension among the step siblings, the points that they make is think of them as peers and not siblings, to where it kind of says you're not going to expect them to be brother and sister right away, and just love each other. They kind of get the example of it's all of a sudden telling your kid well, your classmate is now going to move in and share a bed with you, share a room with you, and they're your brother. And it's I don't know them. They're just an acquaintance. So you have to give them time to really just get to know each other, and allow that kind of journey to take place, of the ups and downs of because you get that even with biological siblings, maybe even more, because it's for some reason, we were just talking about that today. How can brother and sister, or two brothers, you can love someone so much, but then you just hate the essence of them. I can't be in the room with them, and that's just sibling. It's just about being a brother or being a sister. But the other point too, it says, is to keep up important routines and traditions with your kids. So this again, more towards the Brady Bunch situation, where both parents or both spouses have their own kids, not right away trying to well, everyone has to be involved. It's well, no, Dad, we always went on Fridays and maybe sometimes you just take your kids, and it's like, but then sometimes you just take your new kids, and then other times it's all together. Like you kind of just have to like not force things, and it
feel
that looks
the room a little
exactly
bit,
it looks different for everyone. Like I don't know, there's not a set way to do it, but you just kind of like you said, read the room, kind of figure out the best way, but you want to still make your kids feel important, but then also your new kids feel just as important. So
and we just want to say that everything that we've shared, thank you guys if you're still listening and you've hanged in there. Everything that we share is from our own personal experience, and there's so many different kinds of blended families and so many just I don't know, like different ways that people parent, and everything's going to look different in every situation. But I do believe that there's certain things that I think no matter what kind of family you are, we really need to take very seriously. And I hope that some of these points that we shared with you, we felt were some of the top ones that I think we should take seriously. I hope that can give you some kind of guidance. And if you find yourself in this situation, at the end of the day, we're not going to ever be perfect parents. We're just not.
And your family's not going to be
perfect.
Oh,
no one's perfect. God, no. No, they're not. But we truly do the best that we can. And we always do what we know at the time.
Yeah.
And, don't ever beat yourself up for that, because, again, like I said earlier, there's some things that you just won't know that you did wrong until you did them. And you know what? As long as you've learned from that situation and you can grow from it, your whole family can grow from it. God knows that we've had such struggles with our oldest, but where we are now, I couldn't see past the situation when we were in it. But where we are now, it's just a completely different light. And I'm really grateful. Regardless of the things that we didn't do or did do, I think we most definitely have grown. And I am excited to continue to grow, because this is a journey. We're not done. There's a whole lot of news that are going to come, and we're just going to have to figure them out as they come,
like we said earlier, like if you had asked us 5 years ago, where do you think we would be? Like, I wouldn't say the relationship I have with my son would be where I'm at. And, like our family dynamic.
Now I gotta fight. Now I gotta fight to get some time, just him and I. Because you guys are always like, well, we're going to go do this. Like, well, what the heck? What about me? Like, why can't I go? And no, apparently I'm just not invited. So
no, because we go golf and no one takes their mom or their wife to go golf.
Okay.
Anyways, but yeah, so it does definitely get better, but it's like anything else. It just takes work, and it takes kind of just letting it go, letting yourself go through the journey of the ups and downs.
Lots of
patience, and just I don't know who are we to give advice on how to like take the ups and downs of life. That's just a matter of just going through them. But either way, we've come to an end, and again, like Jess said, if you're still with us,
if you hear
thank you.
Last 5 minutes of our dog. She just decided to come in and lick everything in the room. So
including
all those
the mic,
weird sounds, I promise we're not us.
But again, we want to thank you guys for sticking with us on this episode. We will be getting another one out to you guys very, very soon. Be on the lookout for the Would You Rather on our social medias, on whatever ones you follow from us. And give us some feedback on this. If you have any experience yourself with having a blended family, being a part of a blended family, maybe now or when you grew up, we'd love to hear you guys' feedback. So until next time, we hope you guys have a beautiful day.
Bye.